Yeah, and thanks everybody. I'm excited to be doing this. All right, very good. So yeah, so two primary topics are I will open up with some market trends and updates, what we're seeing and things like that, and feel free to share things that you guys are seeing as well. And then I'll step into AI. And you may have noticed on the RSVP thing for Fang, by the way, my colleague Alex Biondo, they had to put their dog down this afternoon. So I told her they were pretty broken up about that. So I said, don't worry about it. I got this. So she's better looking and much more dynamic than I am. So sorry in advance, but there you go. Um, let's see. Okay, so we'll be talking about all of that. And first of all, a lot of this, our world Talents Group is really local to the Houston market. So I know there's a lot of similarity between Oklahoma City and Houston being energy towns, but the things that I'm talking about are things that we're seeing here that may differ in Florida, for example. But I'd be interested to hear if they're the same, different, or that kind of thing. Um, Basically 2013 was tough, not in the way that we normally think of tough, where there's just not enough open jobs. We had way too many open jobs to be able to fill them all, and that personally I felt stretched very thin. And I hate with our customers, our clients, not being able to fill their jobs. But that was definitely the case this year. It has slowed down, and it's actually, I think, been um, kind of a relief may not be the right word, but we're able to fill more of them because I think we're able to really hone in on things that are in our on our fairway, and so we're actually having a record breaking year this year compared to last year, even with carrying fewer jobs, which is kind of interesting. That hasn't happened very often in my career. So that's what I mean. It seems like there's more balance in that third bullet, between candidates and then the job orders that we're working on.
Jeff, can you quantify the second bullet? Like when you say it's moving faster, can you give some sense of how
Yeah,
much faster?
yeah, that's a good question. I would say on average for us, 30 to 45 days is pretty normal. And it has gotten to like 60 to even 90 days, last year, for the reasons that I just mentioned.
Yep, yep.
So and that I think about 30 days to 6 weeks is typically what I say is probably about the fastest that it can be, just when you think about logistically scheduling interviews and doing all
Yep.
that kind of stuff. So yeah, does that answer?
Yeah, thank you very much. That's very clear. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah.
That's
Um,
encouraging also.
Yeah,
yeah,
there's
yeah, for sure.
it seems
But
like
that's a mixed encouragement, isn't it? Isn't it correlated to the price of oil and gas? So there's less of a demand of jobs?
Somewhat. Yeah, yeah, there's definitely less job orders out there that we're working on, and especially in the oil and gas realm with all the consolidation that's been going on and that kind of thing. So it hadn't been so much, I don't think, the price of oil. It's been more, there's been a lot of consolidation this year.
Jeff, there
Yeah,
seems to be a shortage of accountants these days, and I've also noticed, it's become kind of like one of those dirty jobs. Nobody wants to do it. I don't know what it is, but
yeah,
you don't have as many accounting graduates, and I've noticed the quality isn't what it used to be, and I'm just kind of wondering how that's affecting your business and kind of what you're seeing as far as job openings, and is there, seems like there's probably still a fairly strong demand. Maybe not as it was a year ago, but is that still true? I mean, do you see that?
absolutely. Yeah,
Okay.
I don't mean to say the job market for
Okay.
accountants is soft by any stretch. It's softer than it was last
Okay.
year. But you're absolutely right, especially that um, you know we don't do a lot of like right out of college recruiting, but
Yeah.
starting about 1-2 years to I'd say 5 or 6 or so. Um, I If there's such a thing as negative unemployment, I would say that we still
Yeah.
have more jobs than people that were able to fill that
Okay.
segment in particular. And it kind of,
Okay.
as you go up the food chain, naturally, pyramid,
Yeah.
you know,
Okay. Thank you.
shifts there. Sure. So a couple other trends. One thing that we've really been battling with, especially that age group that I just mentioned, and making things difficult, is they were only willing to even consider things that were remote for a while coming out of COVID. And you got to remember, these kids, they never went to class. I mean, not the way that we didn't go to class. We were out having fun. They just had to log in and to video for classroom and stuff like that. And they're used to getting their grades and doing well, and but not actually having to go in. So they were demanding that, coming out of COVID. And that some of them have held out for that, and we're starting to hear that they don't like it as much. They want that social interaction. And then also, I'll mention this, go into a little bit of background on this a little bit, but just the opportunity. I think they're realizing the opportunity for advancement is not there as much if you're not there in person. Some complaints that we hear from our clients, and which I think is related to that whole dynamic, is just a lack of communication skills and social awkwardness. And it seems to be higher than what I recall over the course of my career. For the younger generation, usually were the ones that were real social, but now I guess because everything's, they're on their phone doing that, and not having to go in and meet people as often, that's having an impact.
Jeff,
So
out of
hopefully,
curiosity, I had a question on the prior bullet, and that is, you're talking about it from the job seeker standpoint, but what about from your client standpoint? Are more of them wanting to see, in office, or okay with hybrid, or does it vary?
it varies. We don't see a whole lot of remote anymore. I mean, for a couple of years, I guess let's call it 22, 21 and 22. Um, we were having like 30 to 40% of our roles were full remote, and now that's definitely less than 5%. I don't know. It's insignificant now. It's rare to have a fully remote role for us in Houston. I know other, like California, I hear they're much more about that, but in Houston, we just don't see it as much anymore. A hybrid is very common, and still the preference for both sides. But there are some of our clients, especially if they have like trading floors, buying and selling gas or oil or power or whatever, they tend to require an office for those, which it makes sense. I mean, they're doing deals, and it's easier to walk down the hall to get an answer rather than setting up a meeting.
Plus, it's a lot quicker.
Yes, very much so. We do 2 to 3 days work from home, just depending on what you want to do for as far as recruiting. But we all go in, and I can tell you, there's just times you get more done actually in the office. I know everybody has always argued opposite of that, but that just hasn't been my experience. Okay, C-level roles. So we typically would have, prior to COVID, not a tremendous amount, but 5 to 10 CFO roles that we would be working on any given year, and it's still been less than five. I think a lot of that is because, and again, I may be like a microcosm of not like a broader industry trend, but um, I have some private equity firm contacts, and they just haven't been doing any deals. I had one of them that's basically they're not even raising funds anymore. They're just kind of managing their portfolio. So I think that's driven a little bit of that. There, and bullet number two, the oil and gas mergers, and it's not just limited to like these upstream type companies, but oil field services and all of that. There's been a lot of consolidation in our industry here. And we, as I mentioned before, that kind of pyramid as you go up the food chain, when you had two CFOs operating two companies, that goes down to one. And when a lot of that happens, it just makes it harder to find those. So I do feel like that's starting to change though. And I know interest rates were driving a lot of that. So hopefully now that they're coming down, maybe we'll start seeing more deal activity and more opportunities there across the board. Um, as I mentioned before, we've been doing great and have actually expanded our team in Houston from 28 to 33 over the last year and a half. But we have heard that a lot of the national recruiting firms that are well known have actually been laying off people, recruiters aggressively. So that's another sign that maybe the market's softening a bit. We were talking about hybrid before, and Dell, heard somebody used to work there, but they were one of the more vocal about, we're going to go full remote. We're okay with that. We're doing great. But they've really reined that back in and said, okay, we're not going to force people to come back into the office, but if you want to move up, you got to come into an office. And so that is a definite trend that's shifting expectations and within the market.
I haven't heard of that one.
Yeah. And then even though most companies I work with aren't Dell computer size and that kind of thing, but even mid-sized, smaller companies will tell me, I don't mind if a person works from home quite a bit, but really they need to get involved with our executive leaderships here. And if they really want to move up and you're in finance and accounting, it would be beneficial to them to come in and do that. So and then Alex, I should have said this early. So Alex Biondo, my counterpart, she works on contract interim type searches, and I do direct hire. So on her group, the contract roles were slowing down quite a bit over up and through the spring, but they really have bounced back hard here over the course of the summer. So that's encouraging, because when you think about overall employment, it's the contractors that usually go first when things start softening. And so we are seeing some bounce back, and that hasn't really been showing up in the employment numbers that you hear about. But we usually start feeling it pretty consistently, up or down before it starts showing up in their numbers.
Could you share some more information about what those sort of roles look like? Like I said, I did a couple of interim roles. I really enjoyed it. I found it
Oh, yeah.
extremely challenging. I'm just wondering, what kind of roles do you fill?
Yeah, anywhere from we've got one lady that recruits like clerical, but really the bulk of ours are staff up to interim CFO, and it just kind of depends on the situation, and um, they're both finance and accounting type roles.
Those are a fun challenge, really.
Yeah, and they've got it. If you're interested in something like that, Ed, yeah, definitely shoot me a note, and I can pass you along to that team, and have one of the contract recruiters can give you a call back. It goes for anybody, not just Ed.
Thank you.
So, but let's see here. Yeah, and then just to kind of dovetail into talking about AI. We've been experimenting with different tools, and we can talk about some of that. The reviews are mixed still, but I think that's to be expected. And I felt like as I was putting this presentation together, AI is different, and it is not the same as just doing a Google search and you get the answer you're looking for. It really is collecting and aggregating a lot of data, and so safety is important in it. And Chase that sent a note out to their customers one time, and I started reading through it, and I thought, this is pretty good to share, because I bet not everybody sees this. But basically, their point was really talking about the chatbots that AI tend. If you've ever used Chat GPT or that kind of thing, there's kind of a messaging window that you go in and type in your question or whatever. And a lot of times those will continue to run even if you haven't logged out of it. And so they're capable of tracking, you're checking the weather, sports, looking at new cars or whatever you do online. Typically it follows that around and is listening basically to what's going on.
Would
And
you,
so oh,
Jeff,
go ahead.
would you advise people to log out? Well, you're not actually using it, because I kind of leave it open all the time.
I do too, but yeah, they're saying that really you should
Okay,
click the button to log out of it
to log
and
out.
close the window.
Okay.
Yeah.
But another thing is, and one of the things you put on here kind of got my attention, is on Chat GPT, it asks you to give a description of yourself, what you do, what your role is, and so I put all that in there. And because supposedly the more it knows about you, the more it can tailor its responses. But I'm not sure that's a good idea, even if it's something that people can access.
Yeah, it's great to the extent that you can kind of control what they're doing with that information. And there are some steps there. Well, I'll tell you here in a second, but
Okay.
you can kind of give it some guidance, but this second to the last bullet here is there aren't really any government regulations. So whether they say, oh, check this box and we won't track your information,
Yeah.
who's to say if they actually turn you off at that point? So
Okay.
Jeff, do you have to be logged in? Because when I use Chat GPT, I don't log in. I don't have an account. I use it just for wording is what I've been using it for.
yeah, that's a good question. I would think it still could track things like your IP address, the address of your computer, so to speak. So it may not know your name, but
It knows where
probably
I
could
am. Yeah.
it probably could make that assessment. So and I should have asked this earlier, but do you guys have a hard stop at 8, or how do you normally do this meeting?
Well, if folks are open to going a few minutes before, that's fine. I leave it up to the attendees, but we try to finish the official meeting by 8, just to be
Okay.
respectful of everyone's time, because that's what was advertised. But
Okay.
if
Well,
we're going through this and we're having good conversation, and you, the participant, want to stay on, and Jeffrey's open to that and has the time, we could do that by all means.
okay. I just wanted to be respectful of you guys' time. So
Yeah, we'll just stop the recording at 8, and then we could continue if others have the need for that.
all right, very good. Good. Any other questions on on safety tips? Wanted to make sure I was done with them.
Yeah, that was a good point about logging out, because I never log out also, at least not right away. When I use it, I keep it open for a long time, maybe all day.
Yeah, and I'm not an IT expert, and there's a lot of do as I'm saying here, not as I do. but it is a good reminder that you really do need to. I do want to. I wanted to point out this one too. This more data, greater danger. We'll talk about some job search tools here in a minute, but this is a good example. There's one in particular that a user reported that she was using the tool to send out resumes for her, make look at postings and apply basically. And it grabbed an old cover letter from LinkedIn that she didn't even have public anymore. I mean, she had used it on LinkedIn at one time, but was not using it anymore, thought it was deactivated, but somehow it kind of went into the bowels of LinkedIn and was identified that and used it to post on her behalf. So it's pretty sophisticated what it can do, even though not always what we would want it to do.
But would you recommend to that point, would you recommend someone use the AI tools to that extent? Because I would think I would want to have some control about what's going out rather than it
Yeah,
sending out something on my behalf.
yeah. I think if it were me, I would want to maybe use the tools to help me craft a
Mm-hmm.
cover letter or resume specific to a job that I'm applying for and try to speed that up.
Right.
Um, but I to turn the keys over and just say, hey, find me a job wherever you can. I don't think I would be comfortable with that.
Okay.
Um, so they did have a few suggestions of protecting yourself. I think we may have touched some of these. What this first one was big for me. I had not really thought about that, even though when I looked at it, duh, it seems like such common sense. But use a dedicated email or password with social media accounts and make sure that it's in for applying for jobs and things like that. Um, make sure it's not the same as one that you would use for your bank. Um, and fortunately, mine was like that, but I was like, I don't know that that was really intentional. It's kind of lucky that it worked out that way. But thinking in terms of it's looking and can even track your keystrokes, especially if the chat window's up in the background of your computer. It can really gather a lot of information you wouldn't want it getting out. And then this one's kind of hard, and here you've just got to find some balance. But the advice was don't put your phone number or your physical address on resumes that you're submitting and things like that. Um, the and then instead to try to route that information through your new email that you set up for job search purposes or whatever, and do the same with your LinkedIn profile. Use that job search email for just even networking and that kind of thing. Certainly wouldn't want to have the same one for your bank or any other important websites that you hit.
No, that's really
And then
insightful. I never even thought about that. Thank you.
sure. Yeah, and to do this, I've used a VPN from time to time. They're kind of a pain and it slows things down, so I typically don't do it. But it does make sense that if you used one, then your IP address on your computer, um, it wouldn't even know what that is. So it does give you a higher level of security by using that. And I think these were pretty much common sense that anybody that's been in accounting finance for any length of time knows. But the first one, there are going to be, we actually touched on this earlier though, was the AI tools that are popping up daily. And so a lot of them, you don't know who's actually running the thing. You just think, hey, this looks cool and try it out. But you really do have to try to do some due diligence to make sure that it is um, owned and operated by a reputable company. And if you're using it on, your phone or tablet or something like that, Apple Store or Google Play Store, they have to hit certain hurdles to be able to put their program on those sites. And then, of course, using two-factor authorization and strong passwords is very helpful. Um, let's
In the
see, I'm just
context
trying
of
to.
AI, I don't know about the rest of you, but I find myself on open AI a whole bunch of the time, trying out new things as you just, talked about. I
Yeah,
just wonder
yeah,
how
we.
secure that is, because now I'm a bit concerned because I use the same email account for several things.
Yeah, I think it's just be aware when you are doing something, and if you probably wouldn't want to be paying bills at the same time you've got an open AI window open and that kind of thing. Is
But
probably
I
what I
have,
would.
that's what's a bit concerning.
Yeah, it would. I would be careful with that for sure. Um, a lot of these other steps, I think, have been pretty common just as long as computers have been around, or but definitely be careful with those. I did want to point out resume writing, since that's the topic here. But when trying, rather than giving your full physical address, maybe Houston, Texas, Oklahoma City, um, your town in Florida, rather than your exact physical information, where an AI tool could kind of put together, oh, I know even more about this person than what they're giving me here. Okay, one thing that we've noticed when we're receiving resumes and cover letters and things, a lot of times when AI is used to craft one for somebody, and you really have to use it as a help to get you started, but I wouldn't just copy paste the thing, just because I know we can tell. It's like, this looks like just a job description rephrased, for example, or something along those lines. So you want to remember, make it personal. You're trying to sell yourself when you're in a job search. And um, Alex and I were talking about this, and it's like, what is it that we can do? But it's just, you can tell from the verbiage if it's maybe a little too formal or too general. Just, it's not the way people typically speak to one another or write. Um, and so that's really the main thing out of that was, don't just use it for word. Use it to help you rephrase something that you're struggling with. Maybe make a bullet, like if you wanted to convey an accomplishment from your work, from your job, but we're having trouble getting it down to a brief statement, then use it for that. But not just, constructing an entire resume based on a job description that you see. That is just, you typically doesn't capture or get the attention of your intended audience. I hope that makes sense. That was one thing I was having trouble figuring out how to put it into words, what I was trying to say there.
I've actually noticed that because it just sounds too formal. So what I usually use it for, like when I'm doing my resume, was put in what I wrote and have it rewrite it more concisely. And even then, when I get the concise version, I try to change up words that I won't say that. It's not my personality. I won't use that word, to change
Right.
those type of things.
Yeah, that should work. That would be just fine. Um, and a lot of times on a resume, I guess when you can tell it's just a rephrased job description, there's just no, in this, actually,
Personality.
I've been coaching people on this for years. There's not that. So what did you bring to the table? What I see your job duties, but what did you do while you were there? What did you accomplish? And that's so important to weave into a resume, and greatly increases your chances of getting called in for an interview.
I completely agree with everything you said, and I find it quite valuable that you're sharing the insights. I just wonder, on the other side, it feels like that's so automated as well. It feels like they have an automated tracking system, and you just wonder, does the things you send even make it past their electronic system, or does it just sit in some black hole somewhere, never to be read?
Yep, you're absolutely right. And I think I've got a slide on discussing some of that here in a second. And really, that's what this is for, AI tools for resume writing. There's some that are like called Res Score and Job Scan, where you kind of feed in your resume, feed in the job description, and it'll give you ideas for improving and better aligning for that. Because, to your point, um, there are a lot of companies that are processing the resume using some sort of AI tool, and it's
Yeah.
looking for keywords and certain things, and even style, personality, which I'll touch base on this. One thing that as I was reading through some of these, Res Score actually says they have humans in the background reviewing, in addition, and kind of checking what the AI is saying before they send it back to you. And I'm sure those have an added cost, but that to me feels a little better than just letting a machine do the whole thing.
Jeff, I'm seeing on some of the job applications that are online, you can opt out. I think it says opt out of AI. What are your thoughts on that? Because I've hesitated to click it because the implication is that a human will look at it, but does that slow it down? Does that put you off in a pile that never to be looked at?
Yeah, with us, we look at every other one of them that comes into us. We don't use an AI tool for reviewing resumes. I I wonder, that's kind of a catch-22. If you opt out of it, then you may not get seen at all. And
Yeah.
but I think I would, as long as you're following kind of the safety tips and you know, kind of protecting yourself, I would think that it's okay to use AI. It's here to stay, and it's going to keep evolving and getting better. I think we just need to think about the way we're using it and making sure that we're protecting ourselves and staying in control of our information.
Well, really the question is on a job application of the recruiter, the company recruiter, whether you opt out of them using AI. That was really my
Opt out.
question.
Yeah, I guess I haven't seen that then where
I've seen it on several job applications.
okay. So on the job application, you're filling it out and it says click here to opt out of using AI.
That's correct. Has anyone else
Oh.
seen that?
I wonder if they're using it kind of to what we call resume parsing, where it'll like we do when I get a resume in, um, our database has a tool that picks out keywords and like it'll put the address in the address field. It's not really AI, I guess you could kind of call it that, but I wonder if maybe they're using it for that purpose. I'm not sure what they would be doing
Yeah,
that
I'm
with
not
them.
clear on it either. That's why I was going to see if you've had any experience with it or if anyone else on the call
I do
had
not.
what to do, because I've been choosing not to click it because my concern is that your resume gets put off in a separate pile that may never get looked at because a human has to look at it.
Yeah, right. And it does sound like that would be a risk. I I just wonder what they're needing AI for reviewing an application for.
Yeah.
I suspect maybe it's just to help them get you into their database and more in an automated way rather than somebody having to key it all in. But I could be wrong because I mean that technology's been around for a couple of decades at least. So
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Sure. Um, I could probably put together a whole presentation on just the LinkedIn algorithm. That's the one I'm most familiar with. They all use them, but they do utilize all of them utilize AI right now to um, gather information from your resume and the things that you fill out about your profile, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. The goal ultimately is to make good matches and to send you jobs that they think you'll be interested in. Um, but the things that you can do to make sure that you're giving it effective information to enable it to do that well, keeping your profile up to date, um, and just keep in mind that you know other AI tools out there are combing through LinkedIn and Glassdoor and Indeed and using their information that they're producing. Oh, here's what I was mentioning earlier. This crystal nose was really interesting to me. I don't have any experience with it, but I was kind of read about it. Um, it's not just for resume writing or cover letter writing, but apparently their niche is to um, you put in who or the company or whatever the audience that you're trying to address in an email or whatever the document is, and it tries to gather information about them that they see publicly available. The AI tool sees publicly available and um, tries to match the personality based on their writing style and those kinds of things. I just thought that was interesting. But like I said, I don't have any experience with that directly. It definitely gives you a sense of how AI is, where it's headed, and how it can be used to assist people in the future. These two were really well thought of, this Interview Buddy and Maya. If say you get the interview and you want to practice, you can actually do that with an AI tool, and it uses natural language and kind of asks you questions and evaluates your responses based on, like, I guess some parameters and things like that that are put in there. I put question mark cost $1 because on their website it said it was $1. It seems like it would be more than that, but the I'm sure it's $1 to get it started. But then if you actually want anything out of it, they hit you up for more. But or you can always call me. And I wanted to make sure that you guys feel free to look at asktalance.com. That's kind of our main website is talentsgroup.com, but asktalance.com we started actually during COVID, and there wasn't a lot of hiring activity, as you know. So we started just producing videos of things that we do, and helpful, like how to write a resume, how to sell yourself. We do a very extensive interview prep, and if you're going to look at any of them, I would highly recommend looking at that one. Gives a lot of good information on how to sell yourself, and that's difficult for most of us. Even recruiters have a hard time bragging on ourselves, and that's a different skill set. So there's some good information in there. And it's not AI, it's just a normal old-fashioned website. When you're preparing for an interview also, there's some tools like Crunchbase, Owler, ZoomInfo, and definitely try to gather this. In this information that you gather from doing these types of research will help you tailor your resume and cover letter to the company that you're trying to apply for. I know it's hard work, and you want to get volume out to maximize your chance, but I've just always tried to take more of a sniper approach to things rather than the shotgun, and really hone in on my target. And um, these kinds of tools will help you do that as well. Okay, here's where the AI really, a lot of, I think the one that was mentioned earlier, the teal, and would probably fit into here. But these are just various levels of service that different AI tools can provide, and they have different prices based on what they do. In different levels, it's like some of them, like this Massive is a good example. You know, they are apparently they have some sort of resume tool database that does a good job and gets your information out to where it needs to go and matches you up with jobs. But they're linked up with specific employers, I guess, that are paying them a little bit to manage that whole process. So I definitely check out different ones and just see which one kind of fits what you're looking for. The Lazy Apply was one that I ran across, and I think that's the one that actually grabbed the cover letter that I was referring to earlier of the user. But you really, from what it sounds like on this one, you don't have to do a thing. You put in your resume and it just starts finding anything. But the problem is that it is coded to get you in it, or do whatever it's got to do to get you an interview, and it will say anything about you. If a company's saying they're looking to make a DEI type hire or diversity hire, I mean, it might change your gender and basically lie on that. So there were reviews that were saying it was doing that, and without the the user's permissions. So I wouldn't recommend that one. But just to give you an example of how it's the Wild West as far as AI is concerned. I gave credit to a member in the Woodlands office, Andre Herrera, who actually found a job using some AI tools and some ones that he thought really highly of, resumewarded.com. And so you put in your resume and it scores it and it compares it to a job description. And that I would be a big fan of. I think that sounds like a really good tool to use and help you with a cover letter generator. Again, don't use it exclusively, but use it as a tool to help set yourself apart for any given job. And I just noticed we're at 8. Are you guys okay to keep rolling for a little bit? We're getting towards the end. Okay. Let's see, the ambitious executive. That one was he was really high on it. It was expensive. It was about $1,000 or close to it. But he said it was well worth the money, and it helped him with what you see here, create an executive story. It did some personality assessment and things like that to help him really hone in on what would be a good fit for him, and guided him in developing his resume and his cover letter as he was sending things out. And you can even, now this is what we use, these WeConnect.io and Talon.ai. We use Talon, and you can create an email campaign. Its AI is really the natural language, and it just gives you a suggestion on what a good email would look like. I typically write my own and put it in there. But what I can do is I can load all these emails in and follow-ups, and there's kind of, if the person replies, then it will notify me and maybe send a follow-up email of, hey, let's set up a time to talk. And I don't have to do anything. It could do this at 2 a.m. Instantly if somebody happens to be emailing me at that time. And then if they don't reply, then I put in different emails, and just as a reminder, hey, wanted to make sure that you saw this job that I'm working on, wanted to see if you'd be interested, and it does all this in an automated way. And I wanted to include this because as you're thinking about getting your own message out, you might think about an email campaign. There's something about the following up and setting those. It really, I do get really good responses, usually on about the third email to people. And I think it just, the first one, they're probably getting a lot of responses if you're a hiring manager or maybe a recruiter that you're trying to reach at a company. Second one, they're like, oh, okay, this person's following up with me. I like that. And they may contact you back. And if they don't that time, then maybe by the third one, they will. So you can kind of craft your own follow-ups and things like that ahead of time, and it just does it for you.
And that's the ambitiousexecutive.com.
Yeah, Ambitious Executive has that feature, and then also there's 2 other, if you didn't want to use that, that WeConnect.io does, and Talon, they both do that piece of it.
Okay.
So and really it's good and I think even LinkedIn now has a built-in follow-up message. I think you can only do one follow-up unless they've changed it within the last month. But everybody's recognizing that follow-up emails make a big difference in your search efforts, whether you're a recruiter like me searching or you're searching for a job for yourself. Claude.ai was one that was mentioned also, that really is oriented towards professional messaging like we would want to do, as opposed to ChatGPT, which is more generic. Okay, and I think somebody had asked about this a little bit earlier, but just human tips for dealing with AI and using it as a tool. As you're looking at job requirements, try to give the tool some guidance itself by making sure your resume lines up. Try to think of certain keywords, like if you're going for a CFO job, you want to make sure CFO is in your resume somewhere, or director of finance or accountant. You want to make sure those are coming up frequently within your resume. And industry alignment's really big. We as a recruiter, that's probably our number one request when I'm doing a search is, I need a controller and I need them to have worked within manufacturing or retail or something like that. And so we're always looking at the industry. And so, make sure those industries that you have worked within are somehow woven into the bullets of your resume. It'll definitely make a difference for the robots to find you. And then AI is getting a little more sophisticated at recognize. We were talking about this earlier, but key accomplishments. That's I've always coached my candidates to really think about where you added value to a company. Think about your annual reviews. Thinking about just where you move the needle at a certain company, and try to figure out how to weave those into your resume rather than just having job description bullets. And so that evidence, AI is getting better at recognizing accomplishments and bringing those to the forefront. Another big tip is applying early, and I think this is where also the email campaign can help you. If somebody's being a recruiter, hiring manager is getting a lot of resumes, the likelihood that yours is going to get seen drops off significantly after their first 20 resumes or so. They just start moving through that part of the stack, unfortunately.
Hey, Joe,
Yeah.
do you have a view on the length of someone's resume? You used to always hear, 2 pages, 3 pages, that kind of thing. Is that still pretty important now that you have AI actually looking at these things, and a human, it may get passed to them if it clears that hurdle? But
Yeah,
is it?
I still think less is more. 2 to 3 pages is acceptable, especially for the executive level. I would refrain from going beyond that. And really, if you can keep it to 2, that's great. If you have to go a little bit over, that's fine. But it's a lot of information, and it kind of goes into thinking about your resume as an advertisement for you, and you want to make sure you really hit them with the most important points that you want to get across, and not be trying to shotgun all your accomplishments to the reader.
Okay.
So it's not so much the length; it's the content should be able to fit in a concise way. Let's see, and the rest of this was just different ideas that are coming about with preparing a video and the slide deck. We don't see that a whole lot in the finance world yet. I know other disciplines that's much more common. I think that it's coming, that we are starting to have a few of our clients, usually the larger Fortune 500 ones, that have applicants do some sort of video preliminary interview and that kind of thing. So it's a good idea. Just maybe prepare one just in anticipation that you might have to do one for a big company, and you just want to be a little practiced at that, just like any other skill. So those kinds of things can help. And one thing that I'm a big believer in also, as you're doing your own personal networking, is if you've got a company that you would really like to work at, utilizing LinkedIn as a networking tool. There is an art to it as far as connecting with people, but if you can kind of go through there and see people, maybe you share the same professional association, maybe you're an alum of the same college or something like that that you can connect on um, and share information rather than asking for a job is a little bit easier. So the more you put out, the more you get back, and that actually um, kind of leads into another thing about the LinkedIn algorithm. There are things built in, like when you see people post things on their whatever their timeline on LinkedIn and or whatever it's called on LinkedIn. And so they'll post an article or whatever. But when that article gets shared or you share that with somebody else or somebody replies to you, always reply back and do things like put their name, like John Smith replies to a posting that I put, hey, great article, thanks for sharing. You're welcome, at John Smith. You reply back. And that actually pushes the LinkedIn algorithm will look at that and say, there's interest in that kind of thing. I'm going to push that to the top and you'll actually be viewed by more people that way. I don't know if that makes sense. But those are kind of the nuances of how their programming works at a lot of these social networking sites. Oops, sorry about that. This last one, I think we talked about this earlier, but AI is starting to get better at recognizing personality type and things like that. And there's entire tools dedicated to assessing personality. And so we're not seeing a whole lot of it, but I wouldn't be surprised if more and more companies are starting to use systems like that to try to engage culture fit. Not a big fan of that. I think at the end of the day, you got to get in front of somebody and talk to them. But our goal here is to get you in front and get you to that point. So sometimes you got to play the game a little bit with the AI to get there. So anyway, that is all I had. Any other questions, thoughts?
Really insightful. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I agree. Very good.
Appreciate
Yeah,
it.
very informative and making us think about some things with AI as well.
It is changing fast for sure. My own personal experience with it, the tools that we use, it's kind of hit and miss. But I think it's still early and it is getting better. So
And I would say
like I
also
never like,
maybe,
oh, go
sorry,
ahead. Sorry.
I was gonna say maybe also before you use some of these tools or when you're using them, put yourself on the other side. If you were the one doing the hiring, what would you be looking for, or like or don't like? Because I
Yeah,
know
that's definitely
when I was job searching, that's one of the things I look for because I was like, I wouldn't look at that when I see that.
yeah. That is probably the best thing that you can do overall is trying to think of your audience and try to tailor the information that you're putting out to them.